Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the podcast mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Welcome back to another amazing episode of Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm, of course, your host with the most, Phil Better, and today I am excited because we have someone who's changing the game, both in the bar industry, but also in the franchising industry. He's so busy. He just has a 6-month-old child that he's pried himself away to come talk to us. Please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for my friend, Rich Moyer. Rich, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, Rich, we're going to start off straight off the bat because I like to get right into the crux of things. Why did you become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, this is probably the easiest thing for me to answer, honestly, because I was in the golf industry, was a PGA professional at a private country club in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And all my members were either entrepreneurs or they were in sales. And I quickly realized that they were playing golf on the weekends, playing golf on the holidays, and playing golf during the week while I was working. So loved the game of golf, but I got into it for the wrong reason per se. And I was on the wrong side of the counter. I realized that I was working and I wanted to be on the other side of the counter where my members were. So I started asking them, what do you guys do for a living? And again, they were in sales or they were an entrepreneur. And that led me to starting just conversations, and got in with one of those members and got out of the industry into sales. Led me to starting my first company at 26. And the entrepreneurship side has kind of been built in me and the family. So it just kind of happened naturally, being very competitive after that. And here we are with multiple companies and franchising across the country.
I love it. I love it. So when you started your first business at 26 with your mentor, with this gentleman, was it with this member or was it fully on your own?
Yeah. So the members were just kind of my segue into sales. Sales led me into starting my first company, which I did have a mentor that helped me start the company and mentored me throughout the process of, how to start a company, the documents you need, and then also if you can sell, you can do anything. So his business model was something that he performed in Kentucky and Ohio years ago. He's an older gentleman and was very successful. And we basically recreated that business plan and did it in a different industry here in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, I love that. I love when an industry a blueprint from one industry can be worked on another industry. And then you're like, oh, I have the blueprint for life now. Okay, let's go.
I wish it worked like that.
Right. So what was this first business that you opened up when you were 26 years young?
Yeah. So the old CEO of Starbucks was actually the CEO of the one of the sales companies I worked in. And I just knocked on his office door one day and asked him the question, if I wanted to work for myself, or what are 2 things you recommend or suggest? And he said, if you can sell, you can do anything, and take the job that nobody wants. So a year later, I ended up meeting the mentor of mine that helped me start my first company, and it was in the construction industry. I was just a broker of services for the most part. I would go and sell smaller companies that couldn't sell themselves to big general contractors like building high-rises, hotels, hospitals, multifamily unit apartments, and I would just broker the service. So I would trade paper. If you told me you can do something as small as pressure washing, I might sell it for $20,000. I might pay you $10,000, and I'd pay those guys basically weekly. I'd have to wait 60 to 90 days to get my paycheck. But overall, it was just a sales team for smaller contractors that couldn't sell themselves.
I love that. I love that. Helping out the smaller guys so that they can connect with the bigger guys, get those nice paychecks, and in essence, helping smaller businesses grow and grow. I love that. So from the start, you were just like, I'm going to help people, and obviously you're going to get paid for it, right? But you were helping the smaller guy get that leg up so that they could focus on what they were good at.
Yeah, it was very rewarding to be able to take some of my employees who worked for me for $8, $10 an hour, and then over the year they would grow and want to start their own company and create their own crew. So I'd help them start their company and just keep feeding them business. And those guys are still in business, and they help me build my house. They help me do other things at my newer companies. So it's cool that those relationships have gone 8-9 years now, and the ability to have that relationship, but also see their success over the years is more rewarding than selling that company for multi-million. So the smaller guys, that they do excellent work, they have a great crew, but they just don't understand the sales game, and the sales is the heartbeat of any company. So having those relationships, people do business with people they like. And I was that guy, and I just found great crews that I could trust, and they did great work, and it just snowballed into a multi-million-dollar company.
I love that. And I'm guessing you sold this company, right? You mentioned that you sold it. I'm taking it. Was it stressful for you to sell it, or was it kind of like, wow, this is amazing?
Yeah, the stress was actually before selling. That was one of the reasons I sold it. Was the construction industry is tough in general, but I was the guy for everything. My phone was ringing at 6 a.m. all the way till 7, 8 p.m. And I grew it all organically and grew everything self-funding the business with the money that I was making. I was just putting it back in the company. So I realized that I was working 18, 19-hour days, 6, 7 days a week, and making a ton of money, but I wasn't doing, I wasn't living. I wasn't happy. And the process and the things that I went through on the construction side allowed me to kind of open my eyes for the future businesses that I now have. But it also gave me the opportunity to be where I am today, because I sold the company 2 months into my 4th year of business.
Let's go. I love that. I love that success story, because you normally hear about businesses lasting 5 years and then they crumble because the lifespan is 5 years. You were able to go 4 years and 2 months, and then boom, you were exiting and still growing, I'm betting. And like you said, those smaller guys are still making their cheddar. After you sold that business, did you jump into the current business you're in now with the hopping brands, or was there other businesses that you opened up?
Yeah, so I've always invested in real estate. Bought my first house at 22 years old, and residential real estate all the way until I sold that company. And then 2016, before I sold my construction company, I opened up a homemade ice cream shop with 2 of my best friends in Charlotte. We now have 6 locations and another 3 opening this year. So that was more of something fun, something to invest in. That was a family recipe, and a buddy of mine, real close friend, it was his family recipe. So that was cool to be able to take his idea and bring that to Charlotte. And now it's just kind of a staple in Charlotte and surrounding cities. So that was 2016. I sold the company in 2017. In 2017, when I sold the company, the technology was presented to me, and the opportunity to start something new was just the right timing. And I sold the company February 2017, and this technology was presented to me in October of 2016. And I ended up originally saying, no, there's no way I'd open up a bar, but this technology eliminates 95% of a bar owner's headaches. And it was just something cool, something different. I love technology. I love being different in any aspect of business, because that's what separates you. Mm-hmm. And that's where I really was like, all right, timing's right. And I invested a ton of money into commercial real estate, opened up first location with some of the other money that I made selling the company here in Charlotte. And now we have 4 locations open and an additional 5 opening this year.
Dear Lord. So let's talk about, because you went from what you're jumping into different industries. You were in real estate, you were in construction, and now you're in, entertainment, if we will, libations, if you will. You're in this self-pouring tap business, which is, because I'm used to having to go to the bar, pay, get the beer, not having it at my table. So what is it like running a bar where you don't really have to be running a bar?
Yeah, we do have full cocktail bars at most of our locations, and all locations moving forward will have full cocktail, but that's the liquor side. And then the self-serve taps are going to be beer, wine, ciders, and if legal in the state, full cocktail bars. But man, the peace of mind of being able to, for me as the owner, being able to be anywhere and feel comfortable that I can see every ounce poured out of those taps and know that nothing's being stolen or nothing's given away. It's great. So the operations side is simple. I mean, we have a maximum of 10 to 12 employees, only 2 or 3 are full-time, the rest are part-time. So as an owner and operator, it's very, very easy. I've been fortunate to have that construction company and know what I didn't want to do in the next business. And that was be there all the time. And the reason we work for ourselves is for freedom, whether if we're making $50,000 or $1 million a year, the end goal is freedom, and be able to have that freedom to spend time with family or work on whatever you want to work on. So the management side of it is, man, I own a lot of companies. I've sold one. I've lost and failed at a bunch. This one by far is the easiest to operate once it's open.
I love that. I love hearing that. The simplicity of life is what we're looking for here. And I want to talk about, you did mention you had a few failures. I want to talk about failures because a lot of entrepreneurs don't like to talk sometimes about their failures, or a lot of people don't like to talk about their failures because we grew up in school saying failing is bad. However, in entrepreneurship, failing is good. So it's a complete reversal of our stuff. What were some of maybe the lessons you learned from those failures, if you care to share?
Yeah, it's funny you say school failing is bad. I think a lot of successful entrepreneurs, even some very, very successful entrepreneurs, dropped out of school because they understood that you have to fail. And I always say your failure is your trampoline to success. And most people will see the 10% of your success and not see the 90%. I always compare it to an iceberg. The 10% is out of the water, 90% is underneath the water. So all your failures are underneath the water. Everybody sees your success, and that's what they see on social media or from the outside looking in. So for me, the biggest thing that I've learned is failure is your trampoline to success. If you are not failing, you're not learning. If you're not learning, you're not growing. So I push my employees to go make mistakes and fail. And at that point, if they have questions or if it's something they're like, hey man, I did this, it was wrong. Let's talk about it. Let's go through it. And on the flip side, what do we need to implement so it doesn't happen again? But if they are afraid to fail, then they're never going to grow, one. And two, our company is never going to grow because we're not going to learn different ways to be successful or find ways to be different. And I think it's very important that you allow yourself to make mistakes. You allow yourself to fail because it's only going to make you stronger.
I love that. And do you find when you instilled this okayness to fail, I'm trying to find the proper words as a podcaster, words apparently failed me, but this kind of like encouragement to fail, not fail all the time, but like, hey, your failures aren't the end of the world. Do you find that you get more out of your employees by trusting them that, hey, you fail, it's okay, let's try and figure this out?
Yeah, 100%. I give my employees, my management team, the ownership in their position and the ownership, if they are the taproom manager or assistant manager, the ownership in their job directly. So I don't micromanage. I give them ownership in the position. That gives them the feeling that, all right, this is my place. It's basically, I own this. Even though I don't have equity in the company, I own this position. I own this location. I'm going to do things that are within reason and on brand standards that, I want to see if it works. And then same on our marketing side. I always tell my marketing team, like, algorithms change, everything changes so often. Just try things. If it works, continue doing it, put fire behind it. If it doesn't work, it's one post or one thing, it doesn't matter. It flopped, it's okay. So giving them the ownership in their position and ownership to allow them to fail, it does absolutely make them a better employee. It makes them stay longer. It creates a culture of everybody feels like, we don't have to be afraid that if we do something wrong, that the owner or the CEO is going to come down on us. And that's, I think, the comfortability of good culture and good leadership.
I like that. I like that empowering your employees to do their best by letting them have the training wheels off and fall once in a while. You're franchising now, the hopping idea. Why did you decide to go into that kind of franchising mode?
Yeah, franchising, there's a few bullet points of things that you can look at when you want to franchise your business. And obviously it's got to be a franchisable business. It's got to be pretty simple and systems have to be in place to be able to recreate it. And our brand is very simple. And I think once we opened our doors in 2017 and there was just people flooding in, we were kind of one of the first ones. We were the first in Charlotte and one of the first ones in the country to do it at the level we did it. So the brand, the vibe, the culture, the good vibes that you get when you came into the tap room, everybody was like, hey, how do we get this in our city? Can we do this? Can you help us open one? And the idea of franchising started then. And throughout 2019, we were like, all right, let's look at what it takes, the legalities of it. 2020 came March. Obviously, the pandemic hit, so it was just worrying about keeping our doors open. 2022, when things settled down, I went back to the drawing board, got with a franchise attorney and created our FDD. And we started franchising in September of 2022. And the main reason for franchising is the upfront cost for us to grow organically and corporately would be very extensive, very, very expensive. I mean, it's $1 million to $1.8 million to get one of these open. But if we franchise, it goes back to why I was put on earth, and it's to help other individuals and help people that may want to be an entrepreneur or start their own company. And we're now fortunate enough to rapidly grow this brand across the country while also helping individuals or investors or groups of people either start their first company, add to their portfolio, or be an owner operator of a company. So there's multifaceted, multi reasons on why the franchising made the most sense.
I love that. And plus, it's another tool in your belt when you decide in like 10 years, you're like, okay, I'm done with hopping. I want to try something else. Maybe you'll go into another type of franchising or start another business that may end up being franchised. I love that. Do you find it hard to find that balance between running multiple businesses, having your home life, and with a new child? Obviously, that's taking up at least 90% of your day. How do you keep that work-life balance? Like, how do you stay sane, if you will?
Yeah, I think the craziness keeps me sane, honestly. So that's if I'm not busy, I feel like I go crazy. But overall, my first company, if I had a wife and a child, we would be separated. That part of life I needed to have just be single and work. I've now gotten to a point where obviously I've been successful. I've made money, and I have the funds to be able to hire the right people, create a great culture, and be able to give my team ownership in every location or every company that I own to feel comfortable, to have the freedom to spend time with my family, to go on a vacation and not feel like I need to be on my phone. So I think that comes with, it's been since 2014 when I started, 10 years from my first company. You get to a certain point where it makes more sense to invest in great people and create a great culture to give yourself freedom instead of trying to do everything and kill yourself.
I like that little bit, kill yourself, because it is true. If we don't hire, if our entrepreneurs don't hire the right people, they're going to end up just burning out, and we lose another group.
Lose your wife, lose friendship,
lose your house, you lose your friends, you lose your life in essence, and you're better off sometimes dead at that point. Luckily, people don't usually go down that route. They get the 9 to 5 and then they build up again. But what has been one of the more challenging aspects that you have found in your journey so far in the last decade of entrepreneurship? What was a challenge that you faced that you had a hard time overcoming?
For me, it's always financially, right? If financially I don't feel in a good place, I think that puts the most stress on me. So when I had my construction company, there was times where I didn't have enough money in the bank to cover payroll and pay subcontractors because of the way the money flowed in, and I would pay my team weekly and my subcontractors weekly. So there was one time I remember I actually had to go to my parents, and luckily they had enough money to help me cover that week. But I owed about $50,000 that week, and I only had about $15,000 in the bank, and I had some checks coming in. I just didn't know when they were coming in. So ended up some checks came in before payroll, and then my parents helped me cover the rest. But when you're 26, 27 years old, you go through that and you see $800,000 in accounts receivable, but you can't get it. That is the most stressful part. But I've always said I feel like I'm my best when my back's against the wall, because I'm competitive. I don't like to lose. So I always find a way. And I think good entrepreneurs, great entrepreneurs are problem solvers. That's all we are at the end of the day. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge, is just financially. And that's me personally. Whenever I feel like financials are tight, it definitely stresses you out a little bit, because you have, I had at that point 50 employees and about 200 and some contractors running around that were relying on me to get money in their banks on Friday.
Yeah. I can understand. Like, if you're only taking care of yourself, you're like, oh, well, I'm going to be eating ramen for another week. That's okay, because it's only you who is affected. But when like you said, you had like 50 employees, 200 subcontractors. That's a lot more pressure, because you're like, there's their families, their mortgages, their cars, payments, all this that are relying on you. So you just took on an extra burden of stress on that level.
Yeah. COVID time for the bars was definitely very stressful.
I know. During COVID, I worked part-time as a busboy at a bar. So I definitely know what it was like.
Yeah.
Just standing there doing nothing. And you're like, I hate that I'm here because I'm costing this bar money and this is my favorite bar. So yeah, I can only imagine what it was like. And just before COVID, how long had your operation been in action?
Yeah, so we opened our first location in 2017, December 2017. So that was open for a few years. Our second location opened in August of 2019. Our third location opened up 2 weeks before the pandemic. So we opened our doors and we closed them for 14 to 21 days or whatever it was. And I kind of went against the grain and opened up all of our locations after a certain point. And knock on wood, I just did the right thing, what I felt was right at the time, and it ended up being the right thing in the long run.
I like that. What's next for Hopping and for you, Rich? What's next? What do you see going forward?
Yeah, Hopping, definitely, short-term goal is to continue having getting franchises open across the country and signing on new candidates that fit the culture and want to open up a Hopping in their city and bring good vibes to their city. Longer term, 4 or 5 years, 6 years, get it to a certain point where private equity will come in and buy me out or take some chips off the table. And then some of my other investments will happen probably in the same time frame, 4 to 6 years. They'll be selling, and at that point, I want to do what I feel is passionate and a reason I'm on earth is to help individuals, to mentor, to invest in smaller companies that I believe in the ownership and the people in the company. So I might become more of a private equity or VC of myself in the future and take some time to be a little bit more hands-off on growing businesses and a little bit more on the mentor and leadership, and also being on boards and boards of companies and just providing the advice and leadership and mentorship that I can.
So less of an active role, because right now you're at least semi-active, we'll say, because you're semi-retired, because you don't always have to be there, if you will. But in like 4 to 5 years, you're looking to be more and more hands-off and more of a overseer of everything, if I'm taking this correct.
Yeah, definitely more hands-off, more mentor, more board of directors, more potentially fractional work. But overall, I've built a lot of companies in the last 10 years. It's crazy to look back and see all the ones that I've created and the ones that haven't been successful, the ones that are still open, the ones that are planning out to be sold, and then the real estate investments and all that. So just be a little bit less of the day-to-day and building, and more of, hey man, you've learned so much over the last, at that point it would be 15 years. You've learned so much over the last 15 years. How do you take what you learned and help other people and mentor them so they don't make the mistakes you did, and help them fast track their success?
I love that. I love that goal for you. And obviously you're still young in the game, so you still got years to get more knowledge and take both all your businesses to the next level. I want to talk about hiring people, because some of my audience may be solopreneurs and they're looking to hire their first person. When you first started hiring for your companies, did you have a checklist of things that you wanted, or were you just like, I need to hire someone right away? And how did you go about finding if the candidate was going to be a right fit for you?
Yeah, early on construction was tough, right? There's a lot of language barriers in the construction world. So I had to find somebody that was bilingual. So that was important to me. So really I needed an office manager so I can get out of the office, because I was doing a lot of things myself, whether it was bookkeeping, accounts receivable, accounts payable, sending invoices. So an office manager that I can be more customer facing. And that portion was, I've always liked to go on the referral route. If there's anybody that I know that, hey, anybody that you truly trust and you think they're a good fit for this job, and then interview them. And I hire off of personality. I don't really hire off experience. A lot of the things in this world we can teach. Sometimes I'd rather not hire experience, depending on the position, because they might have bad habits, or they come in and they say, well, this is how we used to do it at my old job, instead of, this is how kind of we do it here. But referrals are the best. Even all of our locations now, we can get a referral, even if it's something as simple as just a part-time employee, it's just much easier. And then at that point, once you hire them, understanding like within the first 90 days, if they're not a good fit, fire them. It just is part of business. You are going to waste more time, energy down the road if you don't. Give them a 90-day probation period where if they don't fit the vibe, the culture, and can do the job that you've put them in the position for, to let them go. But ideally, if you can get somebody referred in from friends, family, that's beneficial. There's some jobs that I actually do like to go poach from other companies. So I'll go on LinkedIn and it might be events manager, corporate events manager, and sales and events here for us. I mean, I poached a girl that had 8 years experience when we first hired her. And that to me is a job that makes a lot of sense because they're bringing instant value. They already have the relationships. They're just going to take the events from where they were and bring them to us. So there's definitely ways, again, hiring them, interviewing them, more of a culture fit, more of a personality and vibe fit for me than it is fully the experience that they've had.
I love that. Someone's starting their first business, right? We're going to put you in the mentor role right now. They're starting their first business. They know who their niche is. They've got down a bit. What aspects of the business would you say that they should, apart from sales, because we know sales is the lifeblood of any business, marketing and sales, lifeblood of any business, we know that. What advice would you give them to position themselves for success in their business?
I think the biggest thing is just taking the action to do it yourself, right? If you're already an entrepreneur or you're wanting to get into entrepreneurship or start your own company, the best way to learn is just go do it. I mean, you can read a book all day long. You can watch a YouTube video. You can watch an audio or listen to an audio book. But if all you do is listen to them or watch them and don't go actually take action, then you're not getting anywhere. You're not going to truly learn because everybody's journey is different. So for me, what I went through, sure, there's aspects that I can help entrepreneurs and say, hey, I see the position you're in, avoid these and go this way. But your journey will be completely different. So the action piece has always been important and something I always push to everybody. Just take action and go do it. Action over everything is what I tell the individuals that I mentor that are kind of on the fence of jumping in and starting their own thing. So overall, definitely take action and learn everything that you can learn in the business. I've always been a huge component on, even when we opened up our ice cream shops, learning how to make the ice cream, learning how to scoop it, learning how to run the register. Same thing with our tap rooms and our bars. Like learn everything that you can learn. So your employees can never look at you and say, well, he just comes in and, acts like he's the boss and the owner. And, if you're in that position and have done it before, you can easily bounce in there if your staff needs help. I still wash dishes or help a customer, or if I see it's busy, when I go into the tap room with friends just to hang out. You never turn it off when you're in your own company or your own business. So learn everything from the beginning and take action and not, don't be afraid to fail.
I like that. Great advice. Nearly great advice for the 10-year-old Rich that I have right beside me here, who's looking at you, looking at the success you've had. And he's wondering what's one piece of advice you want to give to that 10-year-old self of yourself?
Well, one piece of advice I would give a 10-year-old would be the opposite of what most people would say to a kid, which is shake hands with everybody that you can meet. Be likable. Find a way to introduce yourself to people. You never know who you're going to shake hands with. You never know who you're going to meet. My dad instilled that in me at a very young age. And it's been one of the main reasons I've been successful is just the connections, right? I mean, there's so many things that can happen if you know the right people or shake hands with the right people. And there's a lot of friends of mine that are like, hey man, I need a guy for this. I'm like, yep, I got one. And most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, I got a guy for pretty much everything. And it's just the relationships that are built. So if I was, giving advice to my son when he becomes 10, it would be shake hands with everybody, get to know everybody within reason, right? Make sure your parents are around, make sure that you're not just running around the streets without anybody at 10 years old. But if you're at a party with your parents or whatever, go be likable. People do business with people they like. So I think I would instill that at a young age to a 10-year-old or my kids as they're growing up.
I love that. Great advice. Be likable, meet as many people as you can. Fantastic advice, Rich. I'm going to jump off stage, Rich. I want you to let my audience know where they can connect with you, where they can talk with you. Maybe if they're interested in bringing the vibe to their city to start their entrepreneurial journey, how they can get in contact with you and Hopping. So the floor, sir, is yours.
Sounds good. Yeah, you guys can contact me directly if there's anybody out there that just wants a quick bit of mentorship or has a question. You can follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram. My Instagram handle is Rich_Moyer. LinkedIn, just search Rich Moyer Hopping. You can search that on Google and a lot of things will pop up. Outside of that, if you want to own a Hopping or looking to at least learn more about it, you can, again, message me directly or go to www.ownahopping.com. And you can follow us on Hopping CLT on Instagram or Hopping Franchise on Instagram.
Amazing. Rich, I want to thank you so much for being here, coming and talking to us and sharing that wisdom about, don't be afraid to fail and meet as many people as you can, because I think that's some great advice. So I want to thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
To my audience, make sure you check out the show notes, because that's where you can connect with Rich, Hopping, and all the amazing things that Rich has going on in his current entrepreneurial world. And again, I thank you so much for listening. And remember always to invest in yourself.